Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Star Wars Lads. We've got our predictions and speculation for Season 3, Episode 14 of The Bad Batch. We're going to give you our thoughts right now. Before we do so, hit that like button. Helps us out so much. It's free. It's easy to do. Subscribe to the channel. We have 2 more weeks of The Bad Batch, Season 3, so make sure you're joining us for all that content, like our live streams, which happen every single Wednesday, 7 p.m. Pacific. We talk about the newest episodes of The Bad Batch, as well as what might happen in the next week's episodes. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And as for this show, there's only 2 more episodes left, including this one, because episode 14 is our penultimate episode, and it is called Flash Strike. So let's talk about it, Sanak. Flash Strike. Feel like these last few weeks, Flash Strike seems like pretty straightforward title, right? We know the Bad Batch magnetized to the bottom of that shuttle that's going to Tantiss. That's their way in. Echo is still on the shuttle, but the science shuttle is heading there, and they're on with their little transport. And it seems like they might make a flash strike into Tantiss to try to save Omega. But how are they going to get out? What's going to happen to set up the finale? We still don't know if the finale is more than 24 minutes long because they haven't said that. And it seems like every day that goes by, it's going to be a standard Bad Batch episode unless they make an announcement next week. But Sonic, give me your thoughts here. What do you think is going to happen in episode 14, Flash Strike?
Yeah, I think Flash Strike, just like this past week with Into the Breach, can be a pretty straightforward title. They're going to jump out of hyperspace and it's going to be balls to the wall. They're going to go try to catch everyone on Tantiss by surprise, especially with Omega having returned to them at some point. I'm sure they did like a whole tactical debrief. I'm sure they have Echo and Rex and whoever else supplying them as much information as possible on Tantiss. So I can definitely see something where they just think, okay, if we go in fast, we go in hot. It just kind of like how Luke talks about the Death Star trench run. They can't get us, right? And I don't really think there's anything to support that claim personally, but that is potentially the only way they can have any winning chance here. So I see them at least ultimately thinking that, hey, once we jump out from Tantus, transmit immediately the coordinates, and then fly down to the planet all the way as fast as possible. Maybe they don't really have a tracker on Omega, but maybe they have an idea of the general place to land at where they can enter the base relatively safely and get to her as efficient as possible. So I think that would be the plan of attack there. Obviously, it won't go well. I expect them to be attacked like we saw in the TV spot. I do wonder if it's that they're well aware once they do their whole mag clamp, and maybe the people on the science vessel already know, and once they drop, maybe they're the ones telling the base. We've picked up some stragglers, and the V wings that we see chasing after them, maybe those are like already sent out before the Bad Batch can do something about it. Maybe it's just that they see the vessel disconnect, and then because they're sending out a signal, all of a sudden everyone on Tantus is like, "Oh, this is not Imperial transmissions. This is not something that's part of our schedule or routine," and it just goes full code red. And we can see that the TV spot, they're definitely going to crash at some point. We also see Crosshair and Wrecker, I believe, hanging from the shuttle, which is a crazy thing to see, especially with the last time they were using ropes. Didn't really go that well for another one of their former members. So I am very curious about that element. I'm not really sure what they're trying to like do there. Like, are they trying to drop into a specific like identified location where like potential exits that Omega is identified as, this is where I could possibly be found when I try to make my own exit or something of that manner. I'm not really sure about that angle, and I think that's the one that's really keeping me confused, because I figure they get dropped off, then the shuttle goes into a full crash after being attacked by the viewings. It can't happen out of order, right? As they showed off in the trailer, it has to be that these guys at least relatively safely make it to the ground, and then someone else is in the shuttle and has to make a quick escape. It feels like that would be the only way of handling the situation. But from there, the only other thing I can really think about is they have to kind of go through their own like heir to the empire style, go through the jungle, handle the natural fauna and creatures there, see if it causes like severe harm on their way if that's what they have to fight through. Those are the only really things that I can think about. I guess that I do wonder if Echo would be almost identified right away if the signal is sent out, since he is on the scientific vessel. I wonder if there's almost like a form of retaliation, like they find him, corner him off, and then send him to be extracted, tested out by Hemlock, interrogated, and all that. And maybe that's what they're tracking, less so Omega. Maybe they're tracking on Echo first because they need to make sure that his information about the Bad Batch like stay hidden and protect whatever knowledge they have about Omega. But there's the risk of him also revealing everything about Rex's rebellion and all the different cells that Rex is at least organizing and all the other clones that might have gone AWOL recently connected. So Flash Strike, yeah, I think it means that they come out of space, they either this Imperials or they send a signal and everything just explodes and goes crazy. But I think there is a decent chance that they have to also change their plans and try to save Echo first before they can focus on Omega.
What's interesting in this episode is the title of the next one to me, which is The Cavalry Has Arrived. So, in order for the cavalry to arrive to a planet that nobody knows the location of, I feel like there's going to be an element of this episode to where they're trying to find a way to get the location of Wayland and Mount Tantiss to Rex and his crew. Why would they need to do that? And in my opinion, it seems like it possibly could lead to them getting captured. I think if some of the members of the group get captured, the rest are in kind of desperation mode. Their ship is going to crash, as we see in the TV spot. They have no way out. They could steal one, but they need to save the clones and their brothers, probably because they either get Omega out or they see the horrors that are being caused on Tantiss firsthand, because only Crosshair has seen them. Once they see those horrors, they might be like, all right, this is bigger than us just giving a quick flash strike and picking up Omega and leaving. We need a full on cavalry to take out this base. Like, this base is too bad, too dark for us to leave here and actually let it still be functioning. So I think their plan is going to shift, and their attempt by the end of this episode will be to try to get that information to Rex and the rest of the crew to be able to commit their own attack in the next episode. That shot though of Crosshair, it's definitely Crosshair. To me, it looks like Echo, because you see the little kind of like skirt thing that some of the clones wear. I forgot what that's called, and you see the backpack. And so to me, that looks like Echo, which also begs the question: how to get off the science vessel into their shuttle? But also, where does that set of events play? And are they thinking, okay, we're going down, we see the turbo laser cannons on Tantiss turning to shoot them down? Is this an attempt where they're like, we're going to get shot down, maybe we can get Crosshair and Echo on board into the Tantiss base so they can start trying to rescue Omega? Hunter, Wrecker, and Rampart are gonna take the shuttle down and ultimately have to fight their way back. It would be very Last Command in that sense, where some of the group is in one place going on the vault, and then the other part of the group is in the forest working their way to the vault. That would be very much so Last Command. So that would be really interesting if that was the direction they're going. Then maybe by that method, Echo, Crosshair, they get into the base. Crosshair sees the horrors. I mentioned in our stream last week that the CX2 is something that we haven't talked about in a couple weeks, or about a week or so. If we see CX2 in the show again, I feel like it's going to be kind of the dark version of Crosshair. We've already seen that CX2 is kind of that dark Crosshair, and if it's not somebody important, which it would very much so have to be revealed in this episode if CX2 is actually somebody important, but if he's not something important, I think we could see that duel between him and Crosshair, which could lead us to furthering whether we see Generation 1 Dark Troopers, whether we see the actual horrors and torture and mind control that they're using on the clones that they're converting into CX clones. I think a lot of that would be really interesting. All that being said, I do think this episode starts with Omega because Omega has her escape attempt. She's trying to get out with the kids. And in my opinion, that has to go horribly wrong. Like, I don't see Omega escaping from this vault. And if she does, I think it definitely diminishes the security that's around this supposedly impenetrable vault. Because Omega, as much as she is great at escaping, she's in the middle of this facility. I don't know what her next plan is. Yeah, she found possibly a way out, but I think we're gonna have that part where maybe, they eventually get out, everybody kinda crashes in on them, and maybe that's where we finally see the Emerie Karr slow turn, like, it's starting to get there. Omega gets in trouble, Hemlock's there, he's like, "Okay, let's just take all her blood and get rid of her, like, we don't need her anymore," and, Emerie Karr kinda fights for her. I think we could see that type of dynamic play out as well. So there's a lot of character dynamics that I think are going to play out in this episode. I think in terms of plot progression, we're mostly going to just inch our way closer to ultimately the final escape and destruction of Tantiss. I really do truly feel like Tantiss has to get destroyed by the end of this. One, just to set back Palpatine's cloning operation because the sequels don't happen for another 40 something years. So just for that reason, we got to destroy Tantiss. The other thing is it's been kind of the only main antagonistic force against the Bad Batch. And if we're going to wrap up the show without getting into the larger narrative of what happens to the clones, what happens to the larger galaxy as a whole, I think it would be a major win for us as Bad Batch viewers to see them actually defeat the first clone threat. It could serve as a nice launching point for whatever future shows we see about the clones, the future things the clones do and rally around. And there's so many clones on the Tantis base. It would be interesting to see how they team up or fight off the Bad Batch here if you had kind of like a little clone civil war in the finale. But that is getting towards next week. But I think this episode will very much so play into that, especially if that episode 15 is only a 24-minute episode or let's say at best 30-minute episode and not a double length 44, 48-minute episode. Then I think we have to play into some type of cliffhanger in this episode for the finale. And in my opinion, I think that's going to have something to do with a lot of the members either getting captured or being in a much worse scenario than they were, and their only way to really get themselves out of it is to call in the cavalry for episode 15, which I assume will be Rex. But let us know what your thoughts are in the comments below. We always respond to all of your comments about your Bad Batch predictions, so make sure you send them in. And again, if you want to talk Bad Batch live with us, we do it live every single Wednesday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. That's when we talk about Bad Batch, take all your questions, your reviews, your comments, and your predictions about the next week. So next week is the penultimate episode. Only 2 more weeks to join us for the Bad Batch. Make sure you do so. It's a lot of fun. We always have a fun show for about an hour and a half. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we will see you all next time.